nurturing myself, taking care of myself so that I become a guide, that was out of the question because I think I was more his teacher. And there was
Mm,
a part of me which kind of said, I don't want to be his teacher anymore. I want to be his mother. And
mm.
that's what RDI did. It gave me that gift of being his mother, also being a mother to my daughter.
Today we're speaking with Kamini, the RDI Training Director for India and Dubai, who has walked this journey from two directions, as a professional and as a parent. This episode looks at what happens when the work you do for families is also the work you are doing at home, and how each path deepens the other. Hi Kamini, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Genevieve. It's really, really a pleasure to be with you on this interaction.
Maybe we can get started by telling us a little bit more about how you actually first encountered RDI as both a parent and a professional.
I actually encountered it as a parent first. So my son Mohit he's now 36. And when he was diagnosed with autism, we were living in South Korea. I did what they asked me to do, speech therapy, occupational therapy, special ed. But there was a part of me that just felt that something deep is missing. The closest stop to us at that point of time was the US. So I started traveling there often, exploring like what is available in the US, what is autism actually about. So my initial training happened at the Lova's Clinic in California. I got trained with discrete trial. I would go to UCLA, they would teach me like touch this, find this, name this, and they would demonstrate. I did it, and then I went back home with objectives. As I got trained more and more, I decided to actually become certified. By the time I think it was 2004, 2005 that I became a BCABA. By this time, I had moved back to India, and with the years of working with Mohit and with ABA, we opened up this center called SAI, Support for Autistic Individuals, which provided ABA services. So now by this time, Mohit was a teenager. I could see, even after all the years of hard work put in, there was this aggression which I wasn't able to get a hold of. And at that point of time, someone told me about RDI. I started exploring it. Initially, you know how the mind is, it was converting everything into ABA. So I remember attending this one course in Malaysia on RDI. I went to the US, attended a course by Dr. Gutstein, and there was something about RDI that kept pulling me back. Even though my mind was like, no, this must be just a different way of like just applying ABA. But then there was something that kept me going back. I still remember this 4-day conference in
Mm,
the US, in Houston, where Dr. Gutstein shared this slide about only 3 people finding employment and less than 1% enjoying this quality of life. And I was like, oh my gosh, if after all the hard work that I've done, if this is going to be the outcome,
mm,
that shook me up like crazy, Genevieve. And I was like, no, this is not what I want. So then I started working with a US based consultant, Joyce Albu, who was my first consultant. And at that point of time, there were no RDI consultants in India. So I used to work with Joyce. When I saw her interaction with Mohit, so I was looking at it as this, this professional who was used to giving instructions, and I had coached and trained so many parents and teachers, but here I was, and here's this person who's tossing a ball to him without a single instruction. And I was like, how is this even possible? How is she doing this? But then I started getting in with Mohit, building that relationship. And I can't forget that feeling, Genevieve. It was like life transforming.
That's one of the things that a lot of parents and professionals experience. It's like it's such a huge change from that behavior point of view, that behavior perspective, where we're so used to looking at the behavior, addressing
Right.
the behavior, and suddenly we have to make that mental shift to focus on the process instead of the behavior.
I felt that. And then, because of the changes that I saw, by this time he was 17 years old.
Mm.
And at age 17, I was seeing changes. So started as a parent, then decided to get professionally certified. I
Mm.
followed my gut and it was the best decision.
That's the wonderful thing about RDI. There's no magical age that you have to do it by. That
Right, right.
anyone, as long as they're willing to commit the time, the
Hmm.
effort, and make that mental shift, they are
Right.
able to see changes.
Absolutely. And I have to let everyone here know that, when I started this journey, you were my supervisor, Genevieve. And
Yes.
I'll never forget that because I feel the notes that you left me, the feedback that you gave me, it was very life transforming for me. I feel that, I've carried that forward when I give feedback now to professionals that I work with.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. And I have to say, you were one of the easiest trainees that I have worked with because you knew so much already, and I really didn't have to say that much.
That's so sweet of you. Thank you.
In terms of your own journey as a parent, what did you find were some of the challenges that you faced? You mentioned earlier about aggression. What were
Mm.
some of the difficulties and the challenges that you faced during your parenting journey?
Because Mohit is my firstborn, I just felt that taking care of myself, nurturing myself, looking after my daughter, who was born just 2 years after Mohit, I didn't have any clue how to do all of that, Jenny. In my mind, this is that window that I have, and I have to rescue my child and I have to kind of get him out of the grips of autism. Those were the early thoughts. And unfortunately, to the misfortune of not knowing all of this, I just focused on Mohit, his behaviors, his language, thinking that if I just teach him language, it will automatically move into conversations. So that was my whole focus. Nurturing myself, taking care of myself so that I become a guide. That was out of the question because I think I was more his teacher. And there was a part of me which kind of said, I don't want to be his teacher anymore. I want to be his mother. And
Mm.
that's what RDI did. It gave me that gift of being his mother, also being a mother to my daughter, spending time with her. That had a huge impact on me. So now when I work with families who have more than one child, I always inquire about the other child and ask, are you spending enough time with the other child as well?
And that's one of the things we see with a lot of families that they are going from therapy after therapy, chasing so many things
Right.
that they don't have the emotional resource to spend time with that other child or to even take care of themselves because they're just so exhausted.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And also the relationship between spouses that gets neglected. I think RDI brought this whole thing into perspective when I would work with younger kids. And I often still think this that if I had found RDI earlier, and if that was my first line of action to build that relationship and to build dynamic intelligence, then things would have been different.
Does being a parent change the way you train or you guide other professionals?
I think parents who are professionals are at an advantage, Genevieve, because we've experienced it in our own lives, in the sense that knowing what a mother goes through, say, after she experiences a meltdown with her child, being a parent of a neurotypical or a neurodivergent child, I think that really helps in terms of understanding what parents go through. And because we understand what they go through, we're able to guide them through those tough moments as well.
And I think there's no discounting the emotional stress that a lot
Yeah.
of parents, especially mothers, experience when their child struggles.
Right, absolutely.
What do you notice families misunderstand about RDI, especially in the beginning?
Initially, it comes across to them as just a different way of doing things. The depth that we experience in terms of this is a differently wired brain, and guided participation can change the trajectory of your child's life. That's how important it is. The back and forth relationship and how parents are the main guides, that is often overlooked. Parents might say, okay, can you teach these skills to my child? First of all, that shift even from the parent being the main guide, us as consultants guiding the parents to really work at this relationship and build up this back and forth. I think the enormity of it is missed, Genevieve. They feel that, okay, using these other methods also, we can just bring these in, but that's not what it is. It's much deeper. So I think the depth of RDI is actually missed.
And are there cultural challenges that you face when you introduce RDI to families and even professionals in India? Culturally, sometimes we face challenges,
Right,
especially in some parts of Southeast Asia where there's a lot of emphasis on using helpers in the family. So
right,
I was
right.
wondering, what are some of the cultural challenges that you might face?
It's very easy when you see the RDI videos from the US, which are like, okay, let's load the washing machine, let's load the dishwasher, let's mow the lawns together. Here, that's quite a different scenario. Of course, there are families that I know who are totally involved with RDI and they let go of helpers. They consciously make this decision of how do we get our children involved. For example, when I visit my sister-in-law who lives in Houston,
Mm,
and she has three kids. They had responsibilities, like one of them has to vacuum the kitchen every night after
mm,
dinner. The other one has to load the dishwasher. And they help their mom around throughout the day doing different things. But in India, that is not an expectation from
mm.
children. I see some parents wanting to outsource this to nannies. But then I tell them, I know how good your nanny may be with doing this with your child, but can we do other things like an art and craft project? Or what about if you go for a walk or go downstairs and play ball? So I think the tweaking of activities, I find myself doing a lot more here.
What do you think about the long-term outcomes of RDI? How do you tell parents about these long-term outcomes?
I have my own experience to base it on,
Mm,
Genevieve, because, when I started RDI with Mohit and he was 17 years old at this point of time, I had no idea what his potential was. There's a very interesting story behind this because he had become so used to imitations, right? We used to do a lot of do this and then
mm,
do this, and he had to follow through with all of that. I still remember in the beginning, I was sitting with him and doing something, and I just did this. And then I looked at him and he was doing this. And I was like, oh my gosh, this imitation is becoming too generalized. Like he's imitating everything I'm doing. So I mentioned it to Joyce and she was like, let's find stuff that he can't imitate. So I was like, okay, what is it that he can't imitate? I set up this framework and I was sitting with him, and I had these backs of invitation cards that we had issued for some event, and there were a lot of spare ones. So I gave him his set of paints. I gave him these invitation cards. I literally remember putting up a barrier of books between us so that he couldn't see what I was doing. I said, okay, you paint yours, I'm painting mine, and we're not going to kind of look at each other or imitate. So he started, and I started mine. And the way art is, you just get engrossed in doing your own thing. Suddenly, I looked over at his and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing artwork. Now, if it wasn't for the slowing down and giving him his space and time, I would not have even known that my son has an inclination towards art. From the backs of those invitation cards, I still have those, Genevieve. to today, which is 19 years down the line, where he has had exhibitions all over the world. He's had exhibitions in Paris, in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, recently at one of our five-star hotels here in Mumbai, where they displayed his artwork. That potential can come through at any age. We've got to presume competence and really give them this opportunity. So I tell families, you never know unless you give them the chance. Who knows, behind what you see, there may be an artist, there may be a master chef, there may be a baker. One of my students, who's again, same story, he joined RDI at age 19 and now he's a master chef. That was giving him time, letting his talent flow. Another one is an expert baker who takes orders for these fancy cakes that he bakes. One of them is a marathon runner. All this after getting them on the program, getting their parents who are fantastic guides, that has changed the trajectory of their lives.
And these are such amazing stories, and you're right, they really speak so much to the long-term outcomes of our kids, because that's what all parents want. We want a future for our kids where they are independent, where they have meaning and purpose in their lives. And I
Right.
believe that's what a lot of the kids that you've just brought up have found.
So there's so much hope. Good things can happen.
I think for your son, I mean, I've seen some of his artwork. It's incredible. It's so amazing that just from that simple activity of just not allowing him to copy and giving him the chance to really have his own agency and express himself, that's how it
Right.
all emerged.
Right, right. That was really a transformative moment.
Over the years, you've also worked with many professionals now. What do
Right.
you see are some of the challenges moving forward with RDI as you guide these professionals, or hope that more professionals will come to learn more about RDI?
Yeah, I really hope that that happens, Genevieve, and I'm seeing a positive turn towards it because I started training professionals in 2012, 2013 when Dr. Sheely asked me to take care of training in India and in Dubai. And we just used to have like two or three people taking part in each of our trainings. It has been a little difficult because there are other methodologies that people use. Some ABA certifications are easy and they have levels of certification. Those things might be good for us as we get more professionals into the RDI system. That might be meaningful. But what I feel is as we gather more and more parents who work with RDI certified consultants, it's like our army is increasing now.
Mm,
So there is that strength in numbers. And when I first started, people would just say, okay, what's RDI?
mm,
And have that blank look on their faces. So I think that's reduced a little bit, even though that I still get that question a lot, but I get referrals from other consultants with families that they have worked with, and then parents who want to become RDI certified consultants. So a lot of our consultants in India are also parents who have worked on these methods for a long period of time. And the changes that they see in their children is helping them to move towards becoming professionally certified themselves. So there's a whole
mm,
group that are parent professionals. And then there are other professionals also, definitely, who've tried other methodologies. We have quite a few developmental pediatricians and
mm,
pediatricians now who are part of our group of RDI consultants. And not just in India, but in neighboring countries. We have a couple of very accomplished doctors, pediatricians from Pakistan who are now RDI consultants. It's taken time, Genevieve, and I
mm,
still think that I wish there would be many, many more,
mm.
so that's my aim for RDI in this part of the world.
Yes, I share your wish. I share your hope that there will be more people who learn about RDI and can see the benefits so that
Right.
more children can benefit from RDI. I know about the online course that you're doing called RDI Foundations. Maybe you can
Right.
share a little bit more with our listeners.
I love that course because to get people into the professional training, it's like it's intensive. Of course, it's worth everything in terms of what it empowers a professional to do and the trajectory in terms of how they can impact lives. But to get someone onto the training immediately is a little difficult. So what I thought I'd do is to create this 8-week course where I talk about RDI principles and I invite professionals to join this course and say, why don't you understand RDI principles and see how you can apply them in your current scenario? So there are teachers, there are educators, there are SLPs and occupational therapists who kind of join, and then they start applying this in the situations they're in. Now, once they start doing that and they see the impact of that 8-week training, then they're more ready to get into RDI professional training. I think it's a step up instead of trying to convince them and have several calls with them to actually then for them to decide to take on RDI professional training. This is okay, get some training yourself, and then you can decide if you want to do RDI professional training. What I do, Genevieve, is I let them know that, whatever you're paying for this course, if you decide to take up professional training, I'm going to adjust it into that. So
Mm.
that's an incentive, for people who really want to kind of take it ahead.
Yes. And that sounds great because, there are many people that sometimes they may not be ready at that point in time to take
Right.
that next step, but yet they
Right.
still want to learn something.
Yes.
And whether they do eventually decide to take the next step or not, they would have, at the very least, learned certain principles that they can already apply.
It's really lovely to see the flow of it. Last time I had this wonderful art therapist who joined,
Mm.
very accomplished. I could see how gentle she was and the kind of work that she was doing. And the school that she was working at, which is a special needs school for adults, she sent the information also to the principal of that school. So now those people are interested in the next batch. So also it helps in other professionals talking about RDI and saying that, oh, I learned this and I applied it and I'm able to better manage the behaviors of my students.
I know you intend to expand RDI to make it more widely available, but what are your hopes and dreams and eventual goals for RDI?
I feel that it should be part of when you get a diagnosis for a child, that should come with a recommendation for RDI. Do this. Your life is going to be much better. That would be a lovely way of taking RDI ahead, professionals knowing about it, parents knowing about it becoming a methodology which is inherently available for people on the spectrum and their families.
I agree that it would be wonderful, to have RDI as part of mainstream intervention.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Kamini, for your time. I really appreciate your insights and sharing your own personal stories. It's been inspiring and insightful at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Genevieve. It's been totally my pleasure to be on this with you.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Shared Steps, the RDI Journey. If you found today's conversation meaningful, I'd love for you to follow or subscribe so you won't miss the next episode. And if you know a parent or professional who might benefit from understanding RDI a little deeper, please share this podcast with them. Every small step helps us spread awareness across Southeast Asia and beyond. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to having you with me